This morning is gaslighting at its finest. I reached out to my buddy. I call him my buddy. I'm going to force him to be my friend for the rest of his life. AO this morning, I reached out to him text and then he hit me back. He called me and he said, hey man, is the podcast on the 14th? And I was like, nah, man, it's today. And he's like, oh man, I had it for the 14th. And I said, well, nah, man, it's today. And then as I was walking over to the studio, I looked down on my phone and I realized it was the 14th and that we were supposed to do it. But he set himself up. He made sure that everything was good. And when I reached out to him on Instagram, I had seen his work, and this art, he is such an incredible sports artist. I saw his work and it was unreal. I reached out to him and how quickly he hit me back. And I tell you, this is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that, AO Anthony Oropeza was not my friend before I reached out to him. But what's the worst that could happen? I reach out to him and he doesn't want to be my friend. Well, that reality was already in play. But when I did reach out, I got a chance to be able to connect with one of the baddest sports artists on the planet, and you guys get to experience him today. He does a lot of artwork, which you're going to see for the Kansas City Chiefs, Kansas City Monarchs. I saw one of my favorite pictures, which we're going to talk about here in a bit. But he's absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to share him with you. So why don't we get this party started?
Achieving, cause we believing it's for certain. We put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting right before your eyes. So it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Hey, yo, how does it feel to be gaslighted this early in the morning, man?
Oh man, you aren't the first. You aren't the first. But luckily, I could take an early lunch from work and drive home real quick and get everything set up. I had an idea what I would do if I was doing it here at my little home studio, and then at the actual big. So we're good. We're good.
Oh man, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to have you here. I want to switch to this because I want people to see you've got some of your art behind you. I see that you have Travis Kelce behind you. Do you call him Travis Kelce or Kelsey?
I call him Sir. But yeah, no, it's always been Kelsey up until about just on Trav. He's a pretty cool dude. Either way, when I met him, he was spot on what everybody said he was. Just a top notch dude, real personable, and shook everybody's hand, said hi, and smiled. So yeah, I got nothing but good things to say about that guy.
Well, he's incredible. I mean, and then you've got the what some people would say would be the GOAT now as far as coaches, Andy Reid. He's probably going to go down as the best because I don't see anybody beating the Kansas City Chiefs this season at all. I wanted people to be able to see both of those.
Yeah.
But tell me about this as far as the work part of it. How did you get into it in the first place, and how did people react when you said, "When I'm gonna make this art a profession"?
Well, okay, so basically, I was working paycheck to paycheck, where I still work. But my daughter had she was getting ready to she was in seventh grade, and she was getting ready to jump into high school, and I wanted her to go to private Catholic school like I did when I grew up. And I talked to her mother about it, and she said, "You know what? I'm not going to do that. I want her to. She can go to a public school. They're just as good." And I was like, "Well, I know, but my mother put all four of us kids through. I think I can put through one." And she said, "Well, if you do, it's on you." And I was just like, "Oh, okay, crap. I'll do it." And then, but I didn't have any extra income, so I had to get a part-time job. And I figured if I could get a part-time job about the time she's in eighth grade, then I could start saving up and come up with whatever payments needed for high school. And I was always at Starbucks working on something. And I'd just been working on trying to get my website up and trying to get some work as a graphic designer and a web guy. And then finally I said, you know what, I'm gonna try this art thing one more time because I had been failing for the last 20 years, but I'd never put in 100%. And then I was watching this TED Talk, and I think the guy's name is Larry Smith or something like that. But he had a phrase in there where his whole TED Talk came down to you can't really tell your kids to go risk it and give it their best shot if you never did. And so I really never did give it a best shot. So I told myself instead of, and since I was at Starbucks all the time, I mean, I was there 5 days a week working on something. uh, the shift manager or the actual store manager said, "Hey, why don't you come work for us? You're here all the time. You drink all the coffee. You know everything about the company. You know about the coffees and the food." And I was like, "Well, I've started this painting thing, and I think I might have some." This is about 2012, 2013, when the Royals at that time for Kansas City were just on the cusp of being something really good because we had sucked for so many years before. And so I said, I'm going to give this one shot, one last shot. I appreciate the job offer. And at that time, I was doing comic book, either drawings, inkings, or little paintings of like uh, Olaf. I mean, little Disney characters for $50 here. But I was getting steady $50, $80 work. But I was still working on my sports stuff because that's what I really wanted to paint. And then uh, the Royals hit and people started buying some prints of mine, and then I got my first commission in 2014, I think, which is the first year they went to the World Series. Well, not the first, but when they went to the World Series, from somebody out of St. Louis for a 1972 Oakland A's pitcher. And uh, it I was just floored because I think the price was $400, and I had never done a piece for $400. It took me 2 months, so I really took a loss. But the thing is I got paid for my work and I got paid to do sports art, and that was my goal, is to do that. And so the big goal after that was to do 5 of the Royal Stars, and then go on a small little coffee shop or small restaurant tour, if you will, showing the artwork, showing all 5 of them, which would have been Perez, Kane, Gordon, Moose, um, and Hosmer, and then try to get work. But while I was doing the first one, which was Lorenzo Kane, I was posting it on Facebook, and then I'd get small little jobs, and then I'd get more jobs, and then I'd get a commission. And then so I didn't really finish the 5 until 2019, but within 2013, 14, 2019, work increased, got commissions consistently, and in 2018 is when Mahomes showed up and changed even everything around the city, but also even my work. So it's a really weird process, but the main goal for doing either the part-time job at Starbucks or the artwork was to fund my daughter's high school education. And believe it or not, every dollar that was paid to that high school was from the artwork. The full-time work that I did was paid the rent and the utilities and car, you know, and everything else, but the money that was made from artwork, which was the goal, paid for her high school. And it was one of the biggest accomplishments that I'd ever had, and it was so satisfying when I wrote that last check. And the thing is, the kid was a pretty decent student, so the investment was worth it. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Take us back to when the Royals started to hit, right? So that was, you
Right.
said it was, what year did they win the World
14
Series?
is when they were in it against San Fran, and then 15 is when we beat the Mets.
Okay, and that's the ace Danny Duffy was there during that time. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the crazy thing is, Anthony, is my high school coach. They used to pick
Yeah.
me up from school, and he used to have his son in the back of the car. He's a huge Dodger fan, but I lived about 40 miles away from my high school, and I couldn't make it to basketball practice because I didn't have a ride. So my coach
Right.
would come and pick me up sometimes he would have his
Mhm,
son in the
mhm.
back, and then he would bring his son to school,
Okay.
to practice, and he would play around all the stuff, and we would make fun of the little kid. He was running around, whatever. That kid
Sure.
grew up to be Danny Duffy and and win the World Series for the Royals. And that coach is his
Wow.
dad. Coach Duffy is what we call him. So
Right.
that connection
Yeah.
point is nuts. Take us take us to that point, because
Wow.
I think most people don't realize there's no big breaks in life. There's a lot of little ones, right? And some people can look at you
Right.
now and say, "Oh, wow, you got Travis Kelce painting behind you with Taylor Swift shadow in the helmet." Um,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
if you're listening right now, you can't see it. If you're watching, you can. You got Andy Reid. Um, when I said something about Travis Kelce, you said, I call him sir, which means that you have interaction with him. Some people think that you just go from this concept of, I'm going to paint sports, to hanging out and commissioning for a Travis Kelce, but it doesn't happen that way. Take
Yeah.
us through those points,
No.
because I think that that's a big part.
Well, yes, and you're right. People just assume because I paint these athletes that I know them, and I've met Trav. Let's see, I think I met him in 2022, and I've met a couple retired athletes, but other than that, I really haven't met too many. I met Butker at a fundraiser, which I was one of the featured artists there, which was really cool. But yeah, it's the goal was, the goal is to me, because I was broke, was to make good work enough where people will pay a good amount of money so that I don't have to work at Starbucks or McDonald's or for a caterer or anything like that, which I've done in the past, and that's tough work. And then, but don't get me wrong, the anxiety I get or the stress I get from something like, behind me, if it is a commission, is almost the same level. But it's the goal was make paintings, sell paintings, and if the pros see them or want them, then we could chat. It was that simple. And the main thing was just pay your bills, pay the bills, and I don't want to be broke. And I know it sounds weird, but fear plays a lot in a lot of people's lives. And we grew up. I grew up with my mom. Raised four kids basically on her own, and she struggled, and it was tough. And she worked in a factory. And then when I had mine, I was just chugging along. And when I had mine, I'm like, whoa, the game has changed. I'm now responsible, with somebody else at that time for this little piece of joy. And so I got to figure something out. And then when her mom said, "Hey, you're paying for high school," I was like, "Oh crap!" So that means I really got to work. And so it was a blessing too, because it was just like, okay, you're going to be working part time somewhere. You might as well give this painting thing one last shot. And if it doesn't work out, then you just stick to painting. And it took me 2 months, and it told me and showed me that if I'm going to do any good work, I'm going to have patience and believe that I could do it, because I really don't have any painting uh, school. I think I've taken two painting classes, one when I was 20 and then one when I was like early 30s. And everything's just been studying the best artists I could find or that I know of, and then trial and error. So, um, but yeah, I haven't met any of these pros. Um, I've DM'd like uh, Hosmer and Gerard Dyson from the 14-15 Royals. They contacted me for one of the paintings of Ventura. One got the original, the other one got a couple prints, canvas prints. So yeah, there's no chatting, hanging out. It's just like them. It's just work. It's business,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that people do like the artwork and people enjoy it. I did give Danny Duffy's wife back then in 15 or so a print of him that I did, and she was very appreciative. But I've never met him. I met his wife. I've met Albert Pujols' wife, I mean, I meet the connections, like the in betweens,
Yeah.
but no complaints. It's been a really cool and difficult and satisfying ride so far.
Well, I think it's amazing. One of my favorite pictures I was saying that I was going to talk about in the intro was the painting that you did of Satchel Paige, and the
Oh,
there's
yeah.
there's two reasons. One is I remember getting this hat back in the day, and it was because of the Sandlot. It was two prong Sandlot, and my name is Kelly Cardenas, and I saw KC, right? But I didn't realize that most people were going to be like, "Oh, you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan." I said, "Nah, nah, 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 nah. I'm an Oilers fan, Titans
That's what hooked
fan.
me.
I got a lot of pain and therapy in my life." You know what I'm saying? Take us,
Yeah.
take us to
No,
the.
that's
Oh,
what
go ahead.
hooked me. Hooked me was the hat. I was like, oh, he's a Monarchs fan. He's a Kansas City Monarchs fan. I was like, all right. And then I saw your interview with Paul Long, and you explained it that it's your initials, and I'm like, oh, that explains a lot more.
Yes.
That explains it too. So okay, I get it, and I get it. Yeah,
Are you
but
connected? Are you connected with Paul Long?
you know what? He was one of my, if not the first interview during COVID.
Really?
Uh, I love that dude. Yeah, yeah,
Great
I love
guy.
that dude. I was going through some things with with the kid's mom and the kiddo at that time. She had a stroke, and it was pretty bad. So and this was during COVID, and every day I would watch some of Paul's little clips that would make me smile and just lift me up just a step or two. And he came in. He did an interview with me about my artwork at that time at the place that I lived. And that guy. I mean, we don't hang out, but every time we interact, just like I think you said, you had an interaction. You had one interaction with him, and it was just like wild and so positive and energetic. And that's what I've always felt from him on the phone, behind the scenes, and then even during the interview. But man, he's a great dude, and that he was one of my first. He had to be my first podcast interview, which I was really surprised that it even called or wanted to do it, because I always see myself as like basically a little fish. I'm still trying to get to that level of of top notch, but which is great because the more I feel like I'm not as good as I think or I want to be, it pushes me to try to do a little bit better. So
Well, take me to the other part of the picture, the Satchel Paige one, is my buddy Will, who's
yeah.
my best friend. I grew up with him
Mhm.
since fourth grade. His dog was named Satchel. He just had to put him down recently, but
Mhm.
his dog was Satchel, and
Mhm.
him and I, we always, just growing up. He's such a huge baseball fan. I saw that one, had
Yeah,
the Kansas City Marks,
yeah,
things like that. Why did you choose to do
right.
that picture itself?
It you know what? That guy throughout my life has been a mainstay in every time you talk about baseball. And then also, it took me, I think that painting's probably about 6 years old or something like that. But when I really started when I started diving into doing research about the guy, eh, the good and the bad showed up. So if you look at the painting, the bad stuff is behind him, and the good stuff, his championships, his series, the posters are in front of him. So I can't even imagine. It's the same thing with my uncles. I can't imagine, or my grandparents. I can't imagine the stress and the anxiety people of color had to deal with, here in America in the 30s or in the 20s, you know. And when you're a baseball player going from town to town, treated the way they were treated, but still a top level, able to perform at a top level like he did or they did, there had to be some sort of mental focus, high level mental focus that these guys could do, so where they could go and play and then hear that stuff from the stands, and then when they leave, hear that stuff out in the public, but still get to the championships and then still win. So my painting represents the good and the bad, with him having to look forward and say we have to do better and we have to play good, and the results of that, World Series or series wins, championships, and then also having to put behind him every day to focus the bad stuff, colors only, all of the racist stuff that he had to deal with. So that's where I kind of put in the social aspect along with my attempt to place the beauty of the raw and gritty uniform and the actual action of the pitch. So yeah,
That was incredible.
yeah.
I want
There's
to
a
go. I would like to, if you can, Ao. I would like to go to the pitcher behind you, which is Andy
Mhm.
Reid. And Andy Reid, I got a chance to sit down with Rick Burkholder, who's the vice president of sports medicine and performance for the Chiefs, and he was on the
Mhm.
show. And again, I'm a irrational Oilers and Titans fan.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
respect that I have for that organization, because the way that they run things and the commitment that they have to the simplicity of the values, it's incredible.
Mhm.
Can you take us through with because a lot of times people will look at a picture like what I'm seeing behind you, which is this Andy Reid, and they'll look at it
Yeah,
and they'll be like, "Oh wow, it's a
yeah.
picture of Andy Reid." But take us through this from the artist's eye and how you were creating it and why you created it.
Well, the first reason was because not too many people are given, at least in the artwork arena, Andy Reid his due. I mean, this guy is he's the commander. I mean, he's the top dog, and so he's been on my list to do as a painting. And usually, when I put somebody on my list, eventually somebody makes a commission, and then I'm actually also getting paid to do it. But this one is not a commission; it's just one I've had on my list, and the guy's just a phenomenal, head coach. And so I figured I'd pay tribute to him in this way, where you have him holding the trophy up there behind his hat, and then him, with the number one, because for me, in my eyes, it's the championship, or the fact that they are champions. So, and then of course, I mean, and not to say anything about his size, but he is bigger than life. I mean, he's a presence and when it comes to being a football coach Hall of Famer. So that was the idea, and also to make it as simple as possible. I know in the past some of my work can be kind of a lot of layers and but I wanted to make this one a little less abstract in the back. So and this is where I'm at so far, and things might change because I may add something in the front of him, but who knows? I mean, it's a cool thing about being an artist, and it's you can actually kind of wing it sometimes. So but this is where I'm at so far, and hopefully I'll have it done before the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, when do you know as an artist when to stop? My buddy Will, who I was talking about, my best friend since fourth grade, he's just started to unlock that artist in him. And we're around
Hmm.
almost 50
Hmm.
years old now. He just turned 50,
Yeah.
and in these last couple of
Yeah.
years, he really started to unlock it. How do you know when to stop, when to add, when to add a little bit more detail, whatever it is, or that you just step away from the vehicle?
Well, for me, I step away, and then it's just a gut feeling. It's a visual thing. I've been working with the paints consistently for the last 10, 12 years, so you kind of have an idea of what needs to be there. And luckily, I work in acrylic, so it dries pretty quick, so I can go ahead and cover it up in 10 minutes. But for me, it's just been a gut feeling, and like a couple of paintings that probably I wish I could have back for about another week. They pretty much have worked out so far, so I've been pretty lucky. But it's just a gut feeling. As an artist, you kind of know. Same thing with as a graphic artist. You can get the feeling, and if your eye becomes as experienced throughout the years, you'll be able to tell. Yeah.
Does the commission part change things? Because there's the part that, like, say, when you're an artist and you're in an artistic expression, um, sometimes when the finances or pressure comes in, then it changes that way. Does it?
Oh, big time, big time. And it doesn't matter whether they're paying $400 like for my first piece, or if they're paying $9,000 for this one multiple player piece. It doesn't matter. It Every time somebody puts a down payment, I have to take a deep breath, saying, um, these people really believe in me. Which growing up, I didn't have that. I mean, I was a horrible artist growing up. I mean, it was bad. But but when they put the money down, it does change the game a little bit. So yeah, so you have to be a little more focused. You have to put a little more time. You have to be a little more committed throughout the week to make sure you hit 3 or 4 days of work versus, 2 or 3. But yeah, it changes everything because you don't want to under deliver what you promised. So you want to at least hit the mark or over deliver. So yeah, it does. And then the bigger dollar amount, uh, it gets more stressful because I started at $400 and then it went to 500 and I was like, wow, these people are going to pay 500 for this. And then it went to 700 and then, but buddies of mine were like, these aren't $500 paintings. These are 1,000 or $1,500 paintings. I'm like, not yet, not yet. But then got to $1,000 and I was so like floored. And then it got to 1,200. I mean, it slowly sort of creeped up. And so like a piece like this, let me see if I can show you.
He's showing
A
a
piece
picture
like
right
this.
now of arguably the greatest quarterback of all time in Patty Mahomes. So go ahead.
Yeah. So that piece right there, the original ran for now. It's really weird for me to say this, but runs for about a minimum $3,000. So
That's
yeah,
not. I want you to know for us looking at it. If you're
mhm,
on
mhm,
YouTube or you're on Spotify and you're looking at it, we don't have any problem with that. We're thinking, oh my gosh, only $3,000 for that. Like that's what we see, right? But keep going.
yeah, and I appreciate that. Those are the people who think like that are the customers I like and I want. Um, but growing up with artwork like this or having to consider paying for something like this, to me, and even now, it's a lot of money. And so you have to deliver. You want the client when they come and see the final to say, "Wow." I have been so lucky with clients that have showed up, grown men, to the point of tears when they saw
Yeah.
a piece of work, um, which just makes it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. That people would have that kind of effect because growing up, it was tough trying to figure it out. I love sports and I would try sports in high school, but I could never figure out the complete composition of it. And then I saw this one guy out of originally from New York, but he's out of Santa Barbara, Mr. Stephen Hollins, um, and his work just floored me. And so I was trying to duplicate that artwork for years, and then finally I started figuring out the code just a little bit, and it's starting to it's been working so far. So yeah, it's been a weird road, but I'm really glad that I decided to take on the art path
Uh-huh.
than the Starbucks path because I'd probably be in Seattle right now trying to work for corporate office. To be honest with you, I really love that coffee. It's really weird, I know, but yeah.
So as an artist, I was talking with my buddy Tim Story, right? And he's a huge motivational speaker. And he told me early on in my speaking career, he said, I asked him, who do you study? He said, I don't watch any speakers. And I said, well, why don't you watch any speakers? He said, because the word mashak. And I said, well, what is mashak? He said, it means to rub off. And he said that for him, this is just his style. He said the
Mhm,
only
mhm.
speakers that he ever watches or listens to are comedians because he wants to know cadence, timing, be able to deliver, a
Sure.
joke that people want to see, things like that. As an artist,
Right.
how do you get inspired by people but not let it come in and become who you are? Does that make sense? Because there's times where we'll almost imitate as opposed to just continue and add a little bit to who we are. How do you manage that?
Well, the thing is I really don't. I really never had I think I've had two painting classes, and so I really never had a teacher who would teach me painting or would like was really like pro sports art. That's the first thing. Second, when I went to college and took drawing classes, I liked comic books and I liked sports art. And when I did a comic book style drawing of a figure, uh, he blasted it. He did not like it. I mean, and so yeah, I just had to just kind of figure out that nobody's going to be my champion behind me. So I had to just kind of figure it out that way. But and I'm starting to forget your question totally because I'm going off track.
Well, no, I was
Give it to
just
me
I
one
was
more
saying
time.
like sometimes when you watch someone,
Oh,
right? And I found this like
right.
when I have a speaking engagement and I've watched
Yeah.
a certain comedian,
Yeah.
there's times where my cadence will be very similar to theirs, and I've got to be careful. I have to be careful of this. Do you have to be careful of that?
Uh, no, and I don't think I do. If I can emulate Mr. Holland's work, which I know I never will, I'll be happy. But I know I never will. But for me, it's I get inspiration from everybody or every. I get inspiration from a lot of things. I get inspiration from people like yourself who do podcasts and are successful. People who like you who interview top level people, which is amazing. I get inspiration from songwriters who have interviews. For instance, Eddie Vedder. One of his heroes is Neil Young, and also the Who. He wanted to be like them or sing like them, but we all know it's totally different work. But that's who he was started out as. Um, and I see myself like that. I'd like to be like Mr. Holland, but if I can figure out what he does that works, and I can figure it out and implement it in my work, then that takes it up a step. But I know eventually I'll have my own style or styles, and if people like it, great. If they don't, I'm still just trying to work on my stuff. And if they like that, great. Because I can't really change. Because like, I can't really do small pieces. I have to do large pieces. I already know that. So if somebody comes to me and says, "Can you do an 11 by 17 painting?" and I would say, "Well, it has to be a close up, and I usually do this size." So I kind of know what I can do, but inspiration comes from everywhere and everything, and I just try to use it because I don't have a wife that's like always like do good, do good. I don't have a lot of family that are like, "Hey man, keep going." I have some friends who do that, but I also get a lot of positivity from people that follow me. But inspiration comes, uh, it's here and there, and I sort of pull it when I can to inspire me. Just like that TED Talk. The TED Talk inspired me to take a leap and try the tougher path. But I think all artists try to emulate somebody, but nobody can be the identical artist that they want to be. But if you can learn from what those good artists have done to put into your work, then you are going to take a step or two higher, and grow. And if I mean, but you have the main thing about all that, just like those artists out there, the actors, the writers, the singers, um, they they don't quit, and that's been my whole process through 4 hours of sleep early on in 13 and 14 is 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep. It's 1 o'clock, another frappuccino, and let's get another hour or two in, and then go to work in the morning and take a nap and get home at 6, go shoot some hoop, come home, frappuccino, coffee, get down there, get at least 2 hours. I mean, it was a process, but I had this idea that if I could just sell one more painting, then I could pay one more bill. If I could sell another painting, I could pay another two bills. That was there was no. I didn't need a Lamborghini because of I was 30, 40 years old. I don't need a big giant house. I just need to pay for what needs to be paid because I got this kiddo to take care of, and that's what it's all about. So and I
Hey,
don't think any because I met Mr. Holland, and he never said, "Hey, I don't like what you're doing. You're trying to steal my style." And he just said, "You got something. You're on the road to something. So keep at it." And that's all I needed. I still hear that till today. I'm on something. So keep going. So
well, you are, and the painting behind you of Patrick Mahomes. I want to talk about it a little bit. You have in this sports, sports painting. You have the ability to be able to make it look as if the action is actually happening. Like when I'm looking at Patty right now, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I mean, even the jersey seems like to me that he's in a play. It's moving. I can feel that. How do you accomplish something like that?
it's layers and layers and studying the reference. Um, Sometimes the color's not right or it's not good enough, and you've got to go back and add to it. I'll take a step back, or I'll wake up the next day and look at it and I'll pinpoint it. I'm like, okay, we got to work on that tonight. It's just it, and it sucks because it's for me. I've learned early on that it takes me 3 times longer to learn something, whether it was drawing, hand drawing, or whether it was HTML, or whether it was anything software, Illustrator or Photoshop. I took that same knowledge into painting, that it's going to take me sometimes 3 times as long to do something, to figure it out. And so I'll wake up in the morning, pinpoint it, and then I'll look at the reference and then go at it. And I know, like, my first painting I did, which was the Royals, the Lorenzo Kane one, and then I also did one before that, which was Derek Jeter. Uh, the eyeball, there was one eye that I had to do 3 times, each player, because it wasn't right the next morning. And it's just trial. For me, it's trial and error. It's studying the eyeball, it's studying the color. And eventually, just like we talked about earlier, when it's done and it looks right to you, and you hope it looks right to everybody else, and then you're done, and then you move on. That's pretty much how it works. It's there's no set science. It's just keep at it until you feel it's good.
Are there cardinal sins as far as like I had an artist friend that told me that they stay away from teeth, like that they stay away from painting teeth. And when I've seen
Yeah,
people paint teeth, it goes horribly, like a lot of times it goes horribly wrong. Like that's one that,
right.
are there things that you just say like, I'm staying away from that part of it?
I wish I could stay away from jerseys, the
Really?
folds. Oh gosh, they are the worst. It used to be hands, but the hands I can handle, better now. But it's the jersey, because there's so many folds, there's so many wrinkles, and then you're working with shadow and you're working with light. Um, but yes, but it's not as bad now because I really like close-up art. I really like, unless you're going to give me a 10-foot by 10-foot painting, you're going to get something from mid thigh up or waist high. Um, I do like that close-up intimate feeling when people stand, or you stand near it and you feel like you're actually closer to the athlete. I mean, it's a whole different feel. So, but yeah, if I could get away, not have to do it, then it would be full. They are tough. But the thing is I know nobody else can do them for me, so I have to dig in and figure it out. Because again, I didn't take any painting classes. I didn't have that teacher that said, "Hey, here's the light, here's this, here's that." I just had to study, and then I have one friend of mine. He has given me a couple tips, but um, which have helped, but nothing in the realm of school or anything like that. It's all been see it, try to paint it, try to duplicate it, and figure it out. It's pretty much the way it's been with my whole life in general. So yeah.
Anthony, how do you choose how many prints you do, whether you do giclées or that you just say, "Hey, I'm doing the original," and that's it?
Well, the prints vary. Sometimes if the number's big, like if the Travis Kelsey one, it might do 87 prints for the first run.
Okay.
Um, and then I just did a Bobby Witt Jr. one where I didn't want to do his number 7, so I didn't want to do um, 7 prints for the first run. So I do 77. I'll try to do something like that. And then a couple of the prints I've saved. I always save the number 1 and then save the proof for me and my daughter. But like the 15s for Mahomes, I usually save, and then hopefully one day I'll be able to see him or
Yeah.
get them to him if he wants them. But yeah, it just depends. And the cliche, the I say this wrong. The cliches are always they're not. There's not a whole bunch of them. I always do one if
Uh-huh.
when the original goes, so I can show in the studio. But other than that, they're hit and miss. But they're always embellished and they're always custom made so that they actually are an original themselves. So it's a pretty cool thing. And then the second run of every print usually goes as gifts to friends or family or their charity. So um, that's the cool thing about that. I'm able to make extra ones for friends, family, gifts, and charity. And man, it surprises me that some of these prints sell pretty well in the fundraising arena. So I'm really glad about that because that was one of my missions was to help, who I could with the creativity, with the art, for people who are in school to help education, people who are sick, and people who need help with homes or anything along those lines. So to see those prints sometimes sell for 100 $150, it's really cool to see that they make some money for the organizations or schools. So yeah.
Well, in the wise words of Nate Diaz, I'm not surprised, MFer. Like none of us are, man. Ayo, none of us are surprised in this. It's something that for us viewing it, we love the humility part of it. We love the fact that it's genuine. It's not this false humility of you standing up and being like, yo, I know I'm the best in the world, but I'm just going to say that. It's that genuine humility that is such a connection point. Let me ask you this about some of the pictures too. I'm a huge Walt Disney fan. Not only I'm not a crazy park. I like going to the park. We're going right after Thanksgiving, but I love Walt the guy. And I loved some of the things that he did. And probably one of my favorite things was the secret Mickeys that he put throughout the park. The things that people would never know about that he did just for him. And so I incorporated those things in some of our businesses. We did, my daughter's first song that she ever sang was Three Little Birds from Bob Marley. So in all of our physical locations, we put stickers of three little birds above the doors. So everyone, when they looked at those, if they were having a tough day, every little thing is going to be all right. Right?
Right. That's cool. That is cool.
Are there secret Mickeys that you put into your paintings that nobody knows about except you?
There are not in every painting. Early on, and by the way, how did you come up with this question? Why would you ask? Did you ask somebody about my artwork in the past or something like that?
No. But I'm looking.
Knows.
Okay, so my best friend, his name is Dave. So I have Will, who I've been from fourth grade, and I have Dave.
Right.
When Dave watches this podcast, he is going to like. It's probably the only podcast that he'll ever watch in entirety because Patrick Mahomes is over the top of your shoulder. But as I'm looking at that painting, I'm looking at the little tiny things inside of it, and I'm looking at the detail part of it, and I was asking myself, is there something for Anthony in there? Is there something that he did that no one would ever know that he'll be able to be like, look, this part of it, right?
Yeah. So okay, that's really okay. So basically, the answer is yes, but not every painting, because sometimes when it gets close to the deadline, I forget about it, and I feel bad now that as a dad. But in my paintings in the past, I'd say probably the first 6 8 years, I put the small initials of my daughter in a fold or somewhere in there, and so they yeah, so there you would get that small initial of her in there because it used to be every painting I would have her stand next to it. So, when she got older, we could see her how she grew and if the quality of the painting got better. You know what I mean? The quality of the work. But and we haven't been able to because she's been really busy and the artwork had to get out and I'm so kind of like stressed out about house stuff and work and projects and taxes and all the other business stuff. Yeah, so but yes, early on, almost every painting had her initials somewhere in a fold or like close to the helmet of the ear, I think. But yeah, that's one little Easter egg. And then there's one painting I did where it had the Union Station background and one of the buildings had the building's company name, and I went in graphically and changed that and put my logo, kind of faded it in the background. So yeah, there are, but that takes a lot of thinking and a lot of time. But yeah, so early on, my initials my kids' initials were in the paintings, but nothing major. This one I have. So the gentleman who purchased this Mahomes behind me, that's 50. That's the 57 Super Bowl. He's also purchased a commission for the 58 Super Bowl, and he has asked to add some way somehow um, the young lady who's a close friend of mine, Lisa Lopez Galvin, to add her in there some way somehow as a memorial sort of image in there. And he's like, you can make it subtle, you can make it, pretty prominent. It's up to you. So I may do it as a sort of subtle Easter egg kind of deal, or I may not. But yeah, and sometimes the client is okay with it, you
Mhm.
know. So it's nothing bad. It's nothing really offensive, but yeah, I do add them in there, and usually it's my daughter's initials. Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome,
funny how
man.
you asked it because nobody's ever really asked it because a lot of artists do that. They'll throw something in there. I mean, movies do that all the time, so it's
Yeah.
kind of cool. Thanks for asking.
You got it, man. Now how about let's talk about from an artist perspective, because anytime you add business to art, it almost the two are like oil and water a lot of times, right? And so it's like if I was just able to do my art, you probably would get a different expression than if I have to be doing this part of it while I'm doing this part of it too. But it's the
Right.
reality. It's the reality of what it is that we have.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
run into it with the Vibe Room. We have a live version of this, which
Hmm.
it would
Hmm.
be my honor. Okay, so I don't. We're going to be doing it in April, and I would love to
Okay.
do an artist version of the Vibe Room, which is a live version. You're interviewed in front of a live studio audience, and we would be able to show your art too.
Oh,
And what would be cool is to bring Steve Thompson. I want you to write his name down. Steve Thompson. I don't know if you know him, but he's
okay.
Happy Life Wood, and he makes
Okay.
Jordans and different like jerseys, things like that, out of all different types of wood, uses no stains, no paint, anything like that. But you would think it's an actual shoe. It's unreal.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
another friend of mine, write this down. His name is Des Customs. Now, Des Customs,
Yes, I saw that interview. Phenomenal.
okay,
Yes. 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 Yes.
how
Yes.
awesome would it be to
Yeah.
have an artist night at the Vibe Room of you, Steve, who just had his own Jordan made because they did a collaboration with Jordan based off his art, and then have Des Customs in the place too, right?
Wow.
Does this
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
sense?
I don't know. It makes sense, but man, those guys are top shelf.
You're
I
top
don't
shelf.
know.
Ayo,
That's
ayo, ayo.
I
Uh,
appreciate that, okay. So where are you located? Where are you at?
we do it out of Salt Lake City, so that's where
Okay.
we just did it. And the reason I'll go back to the question. I went off on that little tangent, but
Sure.
sometimes when uh, advertisers get involved, business get involved, sometimes
Mhm.
the art has a tendency to suffer a little bit. Um, in your side, would you rather be doing commissions or would you rather be in a place where you're just painting from yourself and then the people come and say, "Oh my gosh, I love that piece. I want to take that piece." Is there
Uh, if I had to pick, it would be commissions.
okay?
Yeah. Because it's if once you agree with the client what they want, then it's going to be a paid piece. And again, I just don't want to be broke. And so it's if you can get commissions that are pretty solid that they're going to pay, and everybody has paid.
Yeah.
That's I'd like to work for that, and that's one of the bigger reasons. I could have worked for Starbucks and they would have given me a check every other week or whatever that was. The commissions are the same. You're going to pay me once the job is done. And so I would take the commissions. And that's basically what I do. I work mostly for commissions now. And then stuff like this with the Travis and with the Reed are my own work. And if somebody sees them online, they'll inquire about it. And if like the Bobby Witt painting that I just finished. A buddy of mine that I worked with 20 years ago, we're still friends. He called up and halfway through, he's like, "Hey, is that a commission?" I was like, "No," and he's like, "Okay," and then and that was it. And then like 2 weeks later, he's like, "Has anybody bought it yet?" I was like, "No," and he goes, "Man, I really like it." And I was like, "Well, let me know." And then a week or so later, he called up and he said, "Hey, nobody's got it, right?" I was like, "No." He goes, "I go, I'm just about done." He's like, I'll buy it, just like that.
There we go.
And so then it became a commission for the remaining amount of time. And then I was like, you better double check with your wife. And he's like, no, I already did. We're good. And so it was sold. And it wasn't a commission to begin with. It was just something kind of like the Reed and the Travis, something that hit me and something I wanted to do. And I do, that's basically what I do. If it's not a commission, I'll do it because I like the way it looks, or have this idea that I think I'll like the way it looks once it's on the board. And then if nobody buys it, it goes up on my wall, and it's a talking piece when friends and family come over. But most of the time they sell, which is really great and cool. But there's one or two that haven't. Like the Satchel Paige hasn't sold, which is great because I love that piece and I love the original. It has not, but it's been a favorite when I first put out, the handful of prints. So yeah, it's and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I really really like the original itself. So, but yeah, if I had to pick, I would take commissions all day. Um, that just reinforces that people really do and still like the work for me.
Man, we were talking at a convention. We have a convention. It's the #1 networking conference in the world called Secret Knock that you can't go to unless you're invited. And I was, in looking at these kind of things, what I was saying to the crowd was, I was sharing with them in any type of business scenario, you either need top line revenue, you need bottom line efficiency, or you need exposure. And I'm telling, like, from me looking at you, I want to speak some life to you because all it is, AO, is just people seeing it. Like seeing your work, like it was a scroll stopper. I was on a plane. That's where I was when I reached out to you.
Oh,
I was
wow,
on a
really?
plane. I was scrolling. I saw your work. I was like, holy cow. It's unreal, man. And once people experience it and see it,
Yeah.
I wish for a day. This is what I had a podcast episode. I wish for one day, man, you could see yourself for what the way that God sees you and the way that he made you and what he made you for. Because he made you for this.
Oh man.
And
You know what? I think about that a lot. Why did he wait? First of all, I'd like to ask him a question: Is why did he wait so long for me to figure this out? Because I didn't really. Well, and the thing is he the way I see it is that I think a lot of the success, and I don't get really spiritual or religious a lot, but I do know and feel that a lot of the for my first painting was Mother Teresa that actually made me think or feel or believe that I could go ahead and do the painting stuff. That's what it was. Um, and that was it. And then the next ones were sports, and then the next sports paintings got a little bit better and a little bit better. So, but yeah, I think they're, and that's one of the reasons why I do the fundraising and donate to help others because I can't really write a check. I can't really write a check and say here's a couple $1,000s. What I can do is I can show up and help make a painting and it goes to auction, or I can donate a poster or a handful of prints so that it helps others. Because I think that's what I was supposed to do. It just took me a while and other things put into my in front of me to make me understand that that's what I'm supposed to do. And even when I try to veer off of my sports paintings, something always veers me back. Because I had quit painting multiple times before I finally gave it one final shot. I mean,
really,
all through my 20s and 30s, I tried to figure it out. I got frustrated. I quit. I went into comics. Then I quit that and tried sports painting again. It didn't. I mean, it was just. And then finally, after studying that artist for 8, 5, 10 years, I said I'm going to give it one last shot and figure it out or try to. And then it just started to click. But when it clicked, the clicking didn't tell me, hey, it's going to be easy. The clicking said, you're onto something. It's up to you to decide whether you're going to push through and figure it out or you're going to quit again. And I had something that I had no choice. My back was against the wall and I had to make a couple extra bucks to pay for this kid's school. And so I had to really believe in it myself. And then, you have two or three people, your friends, and that believe in you too. But which is great. And I'll never forget them. But it's ultimately inside your heart, and is it worth it? Then you just push. But I do believe that um, that uh, my higher power, God and prayer had something to do with it, because I mean, I never thought anything would I never thought the work would be this good, and I never thought people would believe in it that much to pay for it the way they do. So it every day is a blessing to be able to do the work. It's just lately it's just been tough to make time to do the work. So I kind of have to fight things off,
Mhm.
whether it's house repairs or, something. I'm trying to get a new roof on the house and having issues with the roofing company. I mean, all that stuff is stress and time. I got new plumbing I need to do. I mean, but um, I have to make time, and there's no doubt about it. And I've learned that. So it's a matter of shutting things off for a bit, down and focusing. But I do know I firmly believe now that that is one of the main reasons I'm on this earth, is to try to do good work, painting wise with sports stuff, and also um, to be a decent dad. Even though my kid's an adult, I still think, I'm still trying to, and I might be wrong, trying to raise her. But yeah, so those are the two main things. And then now I'm trying to be a better brother, better son, trying to help others when I can. So it's been a process, but it's it took 35 years to start to figure some of this stuff out. So
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. But I do believe that the spiritual side has been there for me a lot, when I think nobody was, for personal, relationship, art, business, work stuff. I mean, all of it. So that has been the constant, to be honest with you, to being able to step back, breathe, pray, go to church, stuff like that. So I'm a really, really good bad Catholic. So, but I'm hanging in there. I'm not quitting yet. So yeah.
Well, I want to speak some life to you, man, because there's a breakthrough that's coming. It's on its way, and but I think one of the things that God is wanting you to understand, and what He's going to help you to understand, is that He'll only allow you to break through when you agree to tell His story when it's done, and you're doing that anyway. And so it's not this beat the chest of AO saying like I'm the greatest in the world and all this stuff. Your story, man. Everyone, I mean, number one, your art speaks for itself. Like if you just saw the art itself, it's there. But then for a person to peel back the layers and to realize that you have expressed this type of talent and this God-given ability because you wanted to put your daughter through high school. That was the reason. It wasn't to become a famous artist. It wasn't any of those things. But that's going to be the story. And so many people are going to lock on, and when they hear the story, the breakthrough's coming, man. It's already on its way. And so I want to speak that life to you, man.
Well, thank you.
It's crazy because yesterday, actually this morning's episode on at 7:00 this morning was all about the perfection of the moment, right? And when you asked about, you know, having a conversation with God and asking Him like, why you wait this long, man? Like, and I believe, and I want you to go back and listen to that episode. I'll send it to you when we're done. But it talked about the perfection of the moment, because I did a speaking engagement and I came off stage, and Stacy Edwards, who's watching right now, and she loves you. She loves your art. She already commented on it right now.
Oh, wow. All right.
She was in the room, and I got done with my keynote, walked to the back of the room, and a guy grabbed me and said, "How did you think it went?" And I looked at him and I said, "Perfect." And he looked at me like, "Oh man, you're pompous." And I was like, let me explain why I said perfect. Because I believe that every moment is perfect in itself, which gives me the freedom to be here right now, as opposed to in the past or hoping on the future. I'm just able to be right here. I respect the past.
Yeah.
I reverence the future, but I could reside right here, right now. And the breakthrough for you, Anthony, I mean, so tell me this. Who would be the ultimate person that, if you got the call today and you said, like, they said, I want to commission you to paint X, who is that? who is the one that you want to paint that you would love to get the phone call from the person because you know you have it in your wheelhouse and you're ready to roll?
So who is the subject or who is the client?
The subject.
Oh, okay. You know what? I've already done it. It's Mahomes. Mahomes is my favorite, and he is him being here. Yeah, it would be Mahomes, and Kelsey, and then yeah, that would, that was it. That's it. That's on the top of my head. Those are the two. Um, yeah, and the client would be Kelsey or Mahomes. I would love to be, but yeah, but yeah, that would be it. And thing is it's any, yeah, those are the top two. It would have to
Okay.
be paint those guys. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm vested in those in the work of those guys, and the way they present themselves, in public for the most part. But yeah, yeah, those two, and it happened already. It happened with the Chiefs. The Chiefs called me up and said, "Hey, I want you to do a 40th anniversary of one of our players, Bobby, one of our players, and that we're going to present it to him in Canton during the Hall of Fame weekend. We want you to do a painting of him." And it was done. It was, and the thing is the funny thing is it was the same time period, and I did it with one eye. I guess that's what I want to say, because I had a retina detachment, and that's the way it usually works in my life, is that there's always, it's the yin and yang. There's always good, but there's always bad that comes with it. It never fails. So my retina detached around the same time I got the commission for the Chiefs, from the Chiefs organization. And so I'm downstairs, painting for a couple hours, because it said I could paint for a couple hours at a time, with a patch over my eye, painting this thing, every couple days to meet my deadline. And but it worked out. He got it. I'm assuming he liked it. I don't really chat to the players. Um, the my customers, people, my contacts, they said it was great. And then so yeah, so it's happened. The Chiefs have purchased stuff. So stuff like that really, it happens, like, in moments, like when you least expect it. It's those little things that just sort of add up to bigger things. So yeah, it's happened already in some way, shape, or form. I mean, the Chiefs called me a year or so before that to do a poster print, and I did a painting of Okoye, which everybody else was doing graphic stuff, graphic design or stuff with Procreate, and I created this painting for them. They shot it, made it a poster, and sold it in the stadium, which, wow, it to me just floored me that they would consider me. And then they literally sold them in every shop in Arrowhead, and
Wow.
that was never on my list. Yes, that was never on my list. Um, and so stuff like that. I mean, I just sit there, and I'm like, this just happened.
Mhm.
This was never, you know. I thought I was done painting, and then I took it back up, in 2012 and 13, and they gave me free seats to the game that they were selling it, and going into the shop and checking it. It was just really cool. It was just really cool. So, yeah.
Now, if you were to paint, because a lot of your work that I've seen is, Kansas City Monarchs, Kansas City Chiefs. If you were to paint another team, let's say the Titans, would you not make it as good as Patrick Mahomes? Because because of your.
Oh,
I'm just joking with you, man. Like if you were
no, no,
to
no. I get that a lot. I get that a lot. I'll paint the Raiders. It
what?
doesn't matter. I'll paint, definitely. I have no contract with anybody to not paint anything. I have painted I painted Larry Bird, an original Larry Bird, and I
Okay.
hate all East Coast teams. I mean, I was a Lakers fan in the 80s. I mean,
Would
I'll
you
be
put
honest with you.
AO, would you put secret Mickeys in there, like to show, like, would you put Patrick Mahomes as,
No, nothing,
like,
nothing negative.
would you, would you, would you
Like
put
number
just like the
15
date
or
that he
something like
beat him?
that.
You know what I mean? Like that.
No, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Hey,
That is a good one though. That would be.
can you quick, there's a friend of mine named Johnny B, and Johnny B is arguably, now there's probably a lot of Kansas City fans that are going to say that they're the one. This is the biggest Kansas City fan I've ever seen in my life. This dude flew out to Las Vegas by himself the last game, because I took my son to the Chiefs Raiders game in Vegas. It was a week and a half ago. And he was there by himself. Like, he flies around the country just by himself just to go see the Chiefs. Could you give a little shout out to Johnny
Duck
B?
races. Duck races. Johnny B is my boy. I love Johnny B. He took me. Oh, I forgot what game it was. I don't know if it was the rate we won. He took me to a COVID game. So Johnny B. I met Johnny B. during COVID when he was doing the duck races, and he reached out and asked for a couple prints to
You
give
know
out
Johnny
for
B?
the duck races. He's my guy. Yeah, he comes to visit me. I think twice a season. Yeah, and he purchased an embellished painting of Mahomes and Kelsey. So yes, yeah, I love that guy. Yeah, he's great.
He was the tennis trainer for my niece, who my partner there, because he's out of the Chicago area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah. No, I did. Yeah. No, I didn't know.
I
We
didn't
got so
realize
many
that you
little
knew.
points that-
Oh my
yeah. No,
gosh.
Johnny B found me on Twitter, and I found him on Twitter actually because during COVID he was doing that stuff with the Ducks, and it was hilarious. And so I watched him every time he did that, and then he saw that I was following, and he said, "Hey man, you mind giving? I love your work. How about a print we can give out to my winners, or some random person he picks or something like that?" And I said, "Sure." And then when COVID, I guess during COVID, he asked me if I could go with him and his wife to a football game. He was kind enough to take me. It's a great time. And then him and his wife's Abby, so they would come and we'd try to hook up and get something to eat, or they'd come to the studio. And then, yeah, no, Johnny B is great, man. He's the biggest non-born Kansas City fan that I know. I mean, yes,
Dude is legendary, man. My friend
yeah,
Julie Compton connected us. She's an unbelievable human, and that is crazy. So I want to say this too. Anybody who's listening to the podcast right now and then jumps on the website of AO's website, you see anything, whether you buy a print or you do a commission, whatever it is, I'm going to do two things for you. Number one, I'm going to get you a ticket to the Vibe Room, which is a live version of the podcast. We do it in Salt Lake City. Second thing, I'm going to get you a ticket to Secret Knock, and it's the #1 networking conference in the world that you can't go to unless you're invited, and I have the invitations. So Anthony, what I want you to know, like, if a person reaches out and they do it from here, I'm going to gift them both of them, which can put them in the room with some of the most, I mean, we just had, I just got to interview Baron Baptiste, who started Baptiste Yoga, and his family is responsible for bringing yoga to America. He also brought yoga to the NFL. He also sold $150 million in product on QVC. I mean, this guy's an absolute beast. So that's the type of people that are in the room. And if you buy a print or an original, we're going to stay in touch because you're going to be my friend for the rest of our life. I'm going to provide them with those tickets.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a good deal.
So,
Yeah, it's very kind.
well, it's one of those things where again, like for us, Stacy is going crazy on the chat too. Stacy Edwards. So I want to tell you, Stacy, I love you.
Hi, Stacey.
Well, it's an incredible thing. And I think with Stacy, I was talking to her about this. We met, and she's an attorney. She's a top level attorney. And I was telling her the same kind of thing. Like, most of the time we don't see ourselves for the way that other people see us. Right. We, with you, with your art, with the things that are going on, what do you think it would take for you to step out of AO for a second and look back at AO and see yourself the way that we see you?
You know what? I've done that twice, I think. One time was in the middle of the night. I'm in my studio, and I have a chair that's one of those chairs that you can scroll around, turn around a full circle. And I got into the middle of the studio where I was at. My studio is wall to wall sports art with either most of it excluding the Gordon and the Satchel Paige, it's all Chiefs. And even my first Chiefs print that I did, or Chiefs painting that I did when Mahomes was a rookie or his first starting season, I sat there and and nobody's in the studio building it all. And I just rotated slowly around and just looked at this. And I was like, I did all this work. This is all it's art, but it's work. And I was just like, I never dreamt that I would do this this much work, to be honest with you, as well as I never dreamt that it would be that it could get better than what I thought it was, that it reached its peak, before I actually gave it one more shot. Because I was always like, I was always like, I always felt I hit a level, the highest level, and that's why I would quit or get frustrated. But then I did this little 360 turn around the studio, and I'm just like, wow, maybe maybe one day people will say this guy put in work, and that's the main thing. You just want to be known. For me, you want to be known that you put in the work. You may not get as high as Kobe. Kobe's work was, I mean, but you want to put in good work, um, and then you also want to be. To be honest with you, I believe I need to be paid for it so I can pay the bills. But you want to do work, and you want to do good things with your work. So
Yeah.
and that's where the fundraising comes in, is to give to others, give back, um, and that's it. It's just like yeah, I just look around and say, wow, I put in this work. And then I remember, the sleepless nights and the coffee and the tired, working in the office tired. But but then you see the final work that this is what you did, which is it's all cool. But then you also have to give credit to the Chiefs. You have to give credit to the teams or the players who did that so that you could do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the '90s for the Royals, and even there were a handful during the '90s with the Chiefs, but in the Royals there was like little to no players to do because we were always losing. Um, so, but you could always hang on George Brett. You can always hang on George Brett to do a painting of him, and it would sell if you wanted. But you wanted some other the other '90s teams to do well. But yeah, it's when you take a step back and you're like, if this wasn't my work, what would I think of this artist? And I would be like, wow, this guy put in work. And that's really what you want. That's really what I want, is that people think or believe or know that uh, that I I didn't just slap it on there. That it took thought, it took planning, it took decision making, and it took a lot of effort into putting the work in. So it's just so to add to that, it's basically what I put in when it comes to sports. And it's really weird how I kind of connect the sports art to playing sports, because I was uh, in my early 20s. I started playing fast pitch softball with friends and family, um, and so I I didn't just show up for practice on practice days. I actually practiced outside of that. I had put a little batting cage in my basement. I threw the ball up against tennis ball up against the wall and worked on my reflexes and stuff. So I did all of that, and then when I quit playing softball, fast pitch softball, in my had to be my early 30s, maybe mid 30s. I went to play I was playing basketball 4 times a week, with the younger guys, and but when I wasn't playing and I went to the gym by myself, I'm working on my shot. I'm working on my spots. I'm working on, you know, running down the baseline and shooting from my spot to hit the point. So I just had to pivot that and kind of change that into, if I could use that same sort of work ethic from sports into my artwork, what would I do and how would I do it? And so that's pretty much how I kind of see it, as that I can't. run every day. I can't go and play in tournaments like I used to. So now it's about focusing on the artwork and putting the energy into that. And that I think has helped in it. Unfortunately, the my artwork is a one man game like golf, where the other stuff was a combination of working by myself and also playing on a team. So I don't have a team, I don't have an agent, I don't have an assistant. It's all me, social media, website, and all the negotiation, all the talks are done with me in person, person to person. So, but that's where school, business, working for an organization comes into play too. So I just kind of use all the little tools that I've learned to the current stuff I have right now. The only tool I didn't learn was how to do my taxes very well. So I'm working on that right now. So, but I mean, I got people to help me with that now. So, and before I didn't make a whole lot of money, so I didn't have a whole lot of tax stuff. But now I'm consistently making a small amount of money with this business. So I have to get that straight. So
Yeah.
it's all process.
Well,
So
it's incredible because there's probably people listening that are going to fill all those roles in the future. The assistant that you're talking about, the person that is going to run your social media, all those people. People are salivating right now listening to you because they're like, "Oh my gosh, this." But I love it. I love the fact of, what you're doing because you understand all of it, right? Because there's sometimes where people start in and they think, oh, I just need to have a team that are doing all these things. But when you know it inside and out, your whole entire business, AO, like it's incredible. I mean, it's the way that we did the podcast, right? When we started this thing, a woman was like, she asked me something about it, and I said, yeah, I got a great team. And she's like, oh, really? Like, who does your video? I was like, a guy on my team named Kelly. And then she's like, who does your sound? I was like, this one guy named Kelly. And then she's like, wow, you really hired people with your same name? And I was like, no, it's all me. Like, I'm pushing the buttons. I'm doing all the
yeah,
stuff.
that's it.
And, but I want to congratulate you on that. Is there a type of music that you listen to while you're playing or while you're painting?
Oh wow, it's another good question. Wow. Right now, and it's evolved. So like when I first started doing artwork in my high school and teens, during high school, it was mostly, you know, in class. My teacher was um, Mr. Carpenter was a graduate from the Chicago Art Institute and a Vietnam vet, and he played Dylan. This is where I got all the Dylan, Beatles, all of that classic Boston, all that rock right there during art class. And then, I'd go home and it was rap. It was all rap, NWA, PE, all of that. Yes, all of that. And then, and then in the mid 90s, it turned over to, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. I got into Aerosmith. And so, but now currently, the go tos are it's Pearl Jam to begin with. And then I'll go to John Mayer. John Mayer's blues guitar stuff.
Yeah.
And then it'll go to Public Enemy, and Stevie Wonder. I will throw in Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. I mean, it's a wide range. I'll even throw in. I know this sounds weird. Michael Bublé, if I need a little uplift, and then I'll go to Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, there's a wide range of what I have. So, yeah, my defaults. My daughter knows pretty much every song, and hates that she knows a lot of the John Mayer stuff, but she knows a lot of the Pearl Jam stuff. And then it's pretty much goes boom, 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 boom down the list. But yeah, it always started off with Pearl Jam, because Pearl Jam. I started listening to them in the mid '90s, uh, right before I had my kiddo, when I was at home working unemployed, trying to learn how to be a web designer. And that radio was on all the time listening. And I was like, who is this guy? Who is what? I've never heard of it. And then I talked to a buddy of mine, and he's like, you got to listen to this song, get this. And that the way he wrote his lyrics, and the way his voice changes and moved, I could see why or where he got the influence of his surfing.
Yeah.
So it's really wild. But yeah, that's the music I listen to, and I know my daughter doesn't really like it too much because it's loud. I'll put it on loud,
What
and half the time I don't care.
do you have to be conscious of the type of music or the mood of the music because it'll come out in your art?
No,
You know?
no, no. I do know that music makes me more productive.
Okay.
I noticed it a while back. I could have the TV on, and it's a little more distracting. Um, and then if I put the music on, it doesn't matter because I'll put it on like Star Wars soundtracks, and it doesn't matter if the music's on. It doesn't matter. I'm focused in on the work, but I really love hearing the music, and the music just sort of keeps me going. Um, More than if it wasn't on, or more than a TV would. I can go work till 3 in the morning on 5 hours sleep if it's all just music and music and
Yeah.
music. And if it's music I like and I can, word with it, I can lip sync with it while I'm going, but yeah, I really didn't understand it, but man, it just something about it that just, even with housework, even with lawn work, I've got to have the music and it gets me through the work.
Question that I've had for some of my friends, which really when I learned about this, it really unlocked, and it was the simplicity of it, which was like, what are you working on and what do you need help with? Because most of the time we just don't express like,
Hmm.
if you could get help with X, that would literally push you over the, you know, would make a huge difference. What would that be?
Uh, a tax person, somebody to teach me how to manage on a regular, weekly, monthly basis, manage it so that when it came time to paying the taxes, it would already be done. That would probably be the number one. I don't like owing people, especially the government. So that would be top number one.
Okay.
The other one would be trusting, um, probably a trusting. I don't even know how to say agent, but somebody to go out and get the work, and that would, and then yeah, that would be top two, and then the third would be somebody to work with on social media and web presence, how we can tweak it, how we can make it better from there. Those are the top three, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice because a lot of times we don't ask for help because we don't think that people will, right? So we just think like,
Right.
I've just got to figure this thing out. And it's amazing because once we start to voice those things, there will be people that just step into our lives and say that's my superpower. Maybe your weakness, it's my superpower, but
Right.
your superpower is my weakness. And then when you make those friends, it can be amazing. If your daughter was sitting here right with us, right, and you knew tomorrow you
Mm-hmm.
weren't going to be around anymore,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to your daughter right now?
First thing I would say was, I'm sorry I didn't teach you as much as I wish I would have taught you, or I didn't know enough to teach you what I think what you should know. But um, you know, I did the best I could, and um, I hope you can see the good stuff that I did, so that when it's all said and done, you have more good to say about me than bad. Um, but you don't know what my goals were when I was your dad, but I hit a couple of them, which I didn't think I would. But and then the other thing was, I would say, is because of her, my whole life changed from the moment she was born, because she was born not breathing. She only was breathing like 20%. And it was very, and then there's where the God thing comes in, because him and I had a conversation, and then um, a few weeks later we got her tested, and the doctor said she's good, she's going to be good. And so but um, yeah, I just want her to know that if she ever thought that I changed her life, she has no idea how she changed mine, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been this artist. If you really think about it, there was no, I mean, if I didn't have to put her through school, I would have taken the easier route and been a barista if I wanted to for a couple extra bucks. But I picked this one because because of her, and because of that, it's the art grew and blossomed in a way that I thought it never would. But I think if I didn't have her, I probably would have just stayed at that little coasting versus with my back against the wall and to work my butt off more than I'd ever had in previous years to try to make something. So hopefully you'll see that, because I know I didn't see things about my dad or my mom. My mom's still alive, but about my dad. I didn't see things about my mom until I was older and I was not living with her. And hopefully you'll see some things that are good or better than you did when you were at home, when I was telling you to put your dishes away, fold your clothes, sweep, clean up after these pets, stuff like that. So, but we'll see. We'll see.
Some of the,
And I guess the main thing is that no matter what, I always loved her, no matter what.
yeah.
The only thing I loved the most and consistently was her, and that she was never unloved. Because many of my siblings and people in my family have felt unloved by people that they, you know, thought they were going to love them, and she was never unloved. So hopefully she'll feel that. And that's what you want every kid to feel from a parent, is that they were never unloved. Yeah, we hollered at you. Yeah, we scolded you. We grounded you. We made you feel silly when you didn't, do something. But the bottom line is you were never unloved. So,
There was a experience in our lives. My pops, it was like my pops was my best friend, and but I was mad at this time. We had this Grand Prix. I can't remember the exact. I think it was a '63 Grand Prix. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And one day the car was gone, and we had this beater, and it was a Catalina, and the door wouldn't shut. It was a piece of garbage. And I always question my pop, like, why'd you do that? Because now we have to ride around in this Catalina. We had the Grand Prix before, all the stuff. Years later, he let me know that it was coming up on Thanksgiving, which we're coming up on. And we didn't have any money to be able to have Thanksgiving dinner. And so he went and sold that car and bought a lesser car so we could have Thanksgiving. Now, you can imagine when I found out about this, AO, for me,
that he sold it.
yeah, when I found out that why he had sold it, I was like, oh, I'm a jerk because I was mad that we had to ride in this beater car. What are some things and sacrifices that you did that your daughter didn't know about that you could let her know about now?
Oh, well, I didn't go out. I didn't go out and party a lot. So her mom and I split her up 50-50 every other weekend. And a lot of those weekends I worked part-time in the evening at a restaurant. And if I didn't work, I was at home painting or trying to paint or working on my website or something when I wasn't out there. And then I think I didn't. I kept on. I continued not drinking. I continued not to party with my buddies who were out at the bars and having a good time. Love them to death, but I knew that I didn't have very much money, so I couldn't spend a whole lot of money, and I wasn't going to use credit cards because I think at that time I had bad credit. So there was a bunch of negatives going on there too. So, but the sacrifices of trying to figure out this craft, so that with the idea of maybe selling stuff to pay for her school and pay for stuff, she was there with me on the weekends. I had her because we would hang out, watch TV, eat some popcorn, and watch a movie or something like that at Disney. And then she'd go to bed, and then I'd go to work in the apartment. I'd start painting and do the work there. So she has no idea on the amount of hours that were put in, and basically I call it playing catch up, because I should have learned the stuff years ago, but yeah, and that would probably be it. She doesn't, and the thing is, I don't think parents really want you to know that, but you'll see that. Like, I didn't know the kind of crap my mother had to deal with my dad, being divorced, and then also the stuff she had to deal with working in a factory, as a woman, like one of 5 women in a factory, where I eventually worked in during one of my summer breaks. And I was like, I don't know how my mother did this, how she made all the bills, bought a house, kept the car running, how she did all that. And she never really complained about that. But then when you get older, when I got older, I opened my eyes and saw, Jesus, she did all of that for us 4 hardheads. And she complained about how we acted and what we didn't do, like clean up and stuff like that. But she never complained about, I have to do this, I have to do that. She just wanted to make sure we had our stuff taken care of so that she could focus on her stuff, which was 100 times more than what we were, dealing with. Cause she's a mom responsible for 4 kids, in the 70s and 80s. So, I never realized that. So I don't think, but we as kids realize that stuff, that what parents do, or what they don't buy, or what they sell to make it a little bit better. My mother would get sale. I mean, our Christmases there were a lot of presents, a lot of medium, small presents, because she would save and she would buy at this throughout the year, and then wrap them up in newspaper, a lot of them. And then we'd have a full giant room of presents, all 4 of us. So yeah, she sacrificed quite a bit and dealt with a lot. And you don't realize that until you get older. She had to raise 4 by herself, and I had to raise 1 part-time, and I can't imagine raising 4 by myself like she did. It was just it's I mean, women who can do that just need an award. It's just amazing. So, I mean, we're lucky. We're still all 4 of us are still around together and alive. But yeah, there's no. I don't think my dad could have handled it, to be honest with you. Rest in peace, Dad. But my mom, she came through, and I don't really want to tell her too much, but she really deserves a lot of props for what she had to deal with raising us and being and working in a factory. So, yeah.
So, AO, I started the podcast because of my 2 kids, Maddox and McKenna. And we have a connection point in this because you started your art because of your daughter. I started the podcast because of those 2. And I wanted to just seek out every iconic person that I could possibly get in touch with. A lot of times, like say Maxwell, he's my favorite musical artist of all time. I reach out to him all the time. I've been reaching out to him since 2019.
So Maxwell, cousin of Michael Jackson, Maxwell.
Is he a cousin of Michael Jackson? I don't know if he's a cousin.
Is this Maxwell from like the 80s, 90s?
No, this is
what am I thinking?
His first album actually was 96. Maxwell.
What's his big hit?
Urban Hang Suite is his first CD. Pretty Wings. Have you heard that song, Pretty Wings?
No, I'm thinking of a different Maxwell then. Okay.
So Maxwell, my favorite artist in the world. I reach out to him all the time. He doesn't know me, but just like you, he already is not my friend. So what's the worst that could happen? I'm living in that reality. De La Soul, I reach out to him at least probably once to twice a week.
Yes. Okay.
I reached out to Eddie George for 3.5 years before I got him on the podcast.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is and the reason why I do it is because I want my kids to see that these people are not idols to be worshipped. They're just icons to be inspired by, right?
Sure.
So what advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could call yourself Uncle AO, it would be awesome.
Okay. Maddox and McKenna, this is your new Uncle AO from Kansas City.
The baddest artist on the planet.
Your dad's words. Don't be afraid life's going to get tough, but life also has moments, a lot of moments of joy and happiness. Um, don't be afraid to lean on your pops. He's there for you. He loves you unconditionally. There are going to be times where you think he doesn't, but the fact that he's there, uh, he's your guy. He's your guy. He may not know everything, but he knows a lot. And don't be afraid to lean on him, because we all need somebody to lean on. And when you're growing up, especially for the daughters, your dad's your guy. So don't be afraid to lean on, because most dads, or a lot of dads, love their daughters, they love their sons. But I guess that's it. Just don't be afraid to lean on him, because he's there while he's there. So
Wow.
good luck.
I appreciate you, AO. You're an incredible human being, better than advertised, man. And I expect a lot, and reaching out. I want to thank you for answering. There's a lot of people that
Sure.
don't. And
Really?
there's a lot. I mean, I reach out, it's literally, but I spend my day, like, I'll see somebody and and people are like, what would give you the permission to go out and reach out to that person? I'm like, I don't care. What are they're going to say? No. Okay. It's incredible, because that type of thing came from my pop. And when you see a picture of my pop, like,
Mhm.
you and I are close in age, but you remind me of my pop. Like, looking at you this morning, it's been such a joy, because not only just in the look, but also the work ethic, the dedication, the resilience, and the utter focus on your family. And man, I want to congratulate. I can't speak enough life to you, man.
I appreciate it. It's very sweet. Yeah, no,
Dude,
I appreciate that. I've been really lucky to in the past, I don't know, 5-7 years to meet people. Paul Long is one. You just people who are good people in and I know you as well as Paul and everybody else, my other friends. Life's tough, and knowing that we know each other, and there's some good that comes in between us, it makes taking that next step throughout the day, I mean, just a little bit easier, because as soon as I get off this great, positive podcast, I got to go to work. And if somebody's going to email me about a project or something I need to take care of, and the stress is going to hit, and then something's going to happen tonight, but these moments of good, they really help when you have those moments of bad. And I really appreciate this. This is really an honor. And the people that you have interviewed are top level people, and being included in the group, and then that idea of being on stage with the other two top shelf artists, that's really a big compliment. Whether it happens or not, I hope it does. But if it doesn't, just being asked or considered in that level, another thing that is you never really would have expected. So I appreciate it.
well, I'm great. Right. I tell you, like, right when I get off this with you, is I'm going to call Des and I'm going to call Steve, and we're going to start getting in the works. If it's not April, then it'll be the following one. But
Okay.
it would be an absolute honor to be able to have you, man. And I appreciate you. I know you've taken way more time for us than was I guess was asked of you, but I want to thank you, because this part, I heard it the other day. I was listening to a Rogan podcast, and he said, in hour 2 and 3 on the podcast is where people start getting real. And although we don't go for 3 hours, my brother's was 3.5, and it was awesome. But I want people to understand the story behind you, because the story behind you is so important to the absolutely masterful art that you have. And, and there's very few people that have both. There's some people that have great technical and they don't have the story behind them, but you have the story and you have some of the best sports art out there. And I just want to congratulate you, man. Thank you again for being on the show, man.
I appreciate it. I really do. This is really kind. Thank you.
All right, brother. Well, everyone out there listening, make sure you subscribe, do all those things. And if you go and you go to Anthony's website, which is the link is in the bio. It is AO. What tell them AO Art.
AO Art 5.
AOArt5.com. Go to that.
Yep.
Buy a print. Buy an original, commission a piece, do whatever you need to, and then let me know, because then you'll come to the Vibe Room and you'll come to Secret Knock. Anthony, it's been a pleasure again, and you're officially off the hot seat.
Thank
Peace,
you.
love,
Thank you. This is great. I appreciate it.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in.